What is up, guys, and welcome back to another Bojinjin vlog. Hello. How's it going? I hope you're well. Hello. Yeah, so you might be thinking that it's nighttime right now, but it's actually like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah. Seriously, what the fuck? But like, oh well, I have my light source here, so maybe I can get actually a bit closer to my face so that so I will be more illuminated. In all senses of the word. So anyway, today's entry, I wanted to talk about something I talked about last week, which I believe was kind of a strange one for me, in the sense that like my central message on this channel is to kind of live according to you, and to follow your love and your heart and all of that stuff, right? Yeah, that's kind of generally my message. But like last week I talked about when love is too much, right? Which is, again, like, it seems like it goes against like my kind of central tenet, if you will. If I were to have like a collection of teachings, but like, again, I'm just a rando on the internet, like rambling about stuff that he thinks about, weirdly. But yes, but like I thought that in this entry I would kind of do a continuation of that, because yeah, I've been doing some thinking recently, and the more that I go through my life and have my own experiences, and the more that you do this thing called life, right, the more that you kind of just see like not only the benefits or detriments of things on the surface, right? Because we grow up kind of like being told, or having this idea that certain things are good for us and certain things are bad for us, and there's nothing in between, right? But like as we kind of grow along our journey, we realize that like, well, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. You've heard that saying before, I'm sure, right? Or like, indeed, like the converse, which is like too little of a bad thing is a bad thing, if that makes sense. Right? Yeah, like, it's like, you need to be challenged, right, in life. Or, right, it's not that you need to be challenged, right? That's kind of like a weird way that we kind of, like articulate it, right? It's like, people say that you need adversity to kind of mature, right? But I wouldn't say need. I think it's more of the more that you can align yourself with an empowering paradigm, I suppose, an empowering kind of modality that you use, or mindset, really, it is like a big chunk of it. Like, the more that you can embrace like an empowering mindset over the trials and tribulations of life, to the extent that you can, honestly, obviously, because like sometimes shit happens and it's really shitty, it's really, really shitty, right? And it's like, what can you do about it? But like to the extent that you can be like, okay, what can I learn from this episode in my life, which was not necessarily comfortable or blissful, like, you can kind of still be like, okay, well, what can this teach me? How can this deepen my own knowledge over myself and on the kind of goings-ons of the world, right? Kind of a thing, right? Which is a very kind of clumsy way, I know, like, of like my own clumsy way of saying, yeah, as long as you know how to roll, you learn to roll with the punches as you get older, and you kind of put the negative aspects of life and pain and suffering and violence and evil and all these things in its rightful place, right? You kind of like, at least you might not be able to ever see them in the same way that you would see like peace, right, and the perfect utopia, and the perfect society, and the perfect relationship, and all of this stuff, right? You may not see, these negative aspects with the same degree of, let's say, warmth and, equanimity. Well, not equanimity, but like the same degree of like, yeah, like kind of like a joy as you would see those things. Like you might not necessarily see like the negative things in that way, but like you'll still be able to like at least understand that, okay, well, bad things happen, and that's just how life is. And like it's not necessarily about the kind of isolated events that happen to me. It's not about like every single thing that like fucks me over, right? It's rather like it's the whole picture. It's the bigger picture of life. It's like, okay, like life is about ups and downs, but as long as like I know myself, I'm open to knowing myself and the world, and to feel into the experiences that I have, then like I should be okay. Right? At the very least, I can live in a sort of, this is what they call enlightenment, I suppose, right? It's like, or enlightenment, or like heaven on earth, or like nirvana. Really, it's like when you reach a point where you kind of recognize, like you're no longer kind of at the mercy of life, which isn't to say that shitty things won't happen to you anymore, right? That's not saying that, but like rather your kind of perspective over everything changes, right? And that's what people call enlightenment, and that kind of thing. But anyway, so this is kind of standard fare in terms of like what I talk about on my channel. But like, so I mentioned, to the capacity that you can, you try to roll with the punches of life. But like sometimes things kind of happen, and either they're just so heavy that you can't just get over it straight away, or like they're just something is permanent that happens, right? Because like usually the case is that when shitty things happen to us, we can still live to fight another day, right? No matter how much we're set back, or no matter how crestfallen we become, we eventually get back to where we were, and we realize, oh well, I'm still alive. I'm still alive, and I can live to fight another day. But sometimes, stuff happens that is more permanent than that, right? Like death, for example, right? So I don't know if I want to kind of go into the specifics of this, but like, it's nothing personal, right? It's nothing personal, so don't worry about me. Like, it's nothing personal, but like, recently there was a celebrity, and I say recently, it's like, I think it happened last month. A celebrity committed suicide. A celebrity that I personally did not follow that closely. I wasn't really like a die-hard fan or anything like that. I just kind of, I've been following this celebrity ever since they kind of debuted. It's a musician, right? And it's a musician that was part of a group. And again, I don't want to go into specifics, but like, if you're into this kind of thing, then you probably know who I'm talking about, right? He belonged to the K-pop world, right? And I've been following his group, or like I was aware of his group ever since they debuted, which was like pretty much 10 years ago, right? So around 2008, 2009, 2010 was when they debuted. But and recently the celebrity took his own life, and and it was kind of like, it's one of those things that I don't know what it is, but like you tend to hear about this happening a lot in the music industry, right? It's like people committing suicide. I guess the other industry that kind of parallels this is like is like acting, right? actors and actresses, is another kind of profession, that kind of you hear a lot in a lot of suicide and things of that nature in. But anyway, actually, at the time of recording, like this artist, like, or rather the agency that this artist belonged to, released like a posthumous track, and I think there's going to be an entire like posthumous album released for this artist, right? But like, I wouldn't say that this event necessarily triggered me making this entry. Like, really, it's just like it was just a convenient, and it sounds kind of a bit callous, right? And I don't mean it to be so. Like, obviously, it's kind of a very, very, very sad, And I obviously, like, I want to, I wouldn't say this is the case for this person, this artist specifically, but I guess like for people who know about, in particular, like the South Korean music industry and the entertainment industry in South Korea as a whole, right? They have a particular kind of approach when it comes to their entertainment, right? It's often said that like over here, people kind of care more about individuality, right? It's just the West, right? Western culture is more individualistic, whereas over there it's more kind of a I guess corporate, but not in the sense of like business like, even though it is very business like, right? The way that they promote their talent, right? But like I mean, I say corporate in the sense that like it's more that they're more kind of manufactured, or rather like rather than individuality, right? Which is like what is more perceived as normal, or normal over here, which is like, you get to know the artist for who they are. The artist's personality always kind of shines through their work, right? Over there, not so much, and not so much is kind of an understatement, because like it's obviously like you can't take the personality of an artist away from them, but like over there they're more like concerned about image, and image in the most purest sense, in a more kind of like direct sense, right? Over here, image is important, obviously, right? In the entertainment industry, like, image and entertainment, and like, this kind of celebrity thing is kind of like inextricable, right? But but over there, it's more kind of image based, and like, I'm sure that a lot of artists over there like deal with like the pressure. Again, I'm only touching on this briefly, right? This isn't the scope of this entry. I just wanted to kind of mention it, but like, everyone, I'm sure that like a lot of people, and I guess a lot of people have their opinions on like what could have been the cause, for this particular celebrity's suicide, and I guess the main reason I'm not mentioning who they are is because like I don't really want to get into like a debate over it, right? Like, they took their own life, I'm only kind of taking, again, it sounds a bit callous, and for that I apologize, right? I guess it is slightly callous of me to kind of use this person's death as an example in my video, but like, I mean no disrespect, but like, my own interpretation of what could have happened is like that because of the nature of the South Korean entertainment industry, and in particular how the music kind of scene or industry or business, is kind of like set up where like image is number one, right? And really like the music, and the entertainment that comes out of South Korea, not South Korea exclusively, but like just East Asia in general, it's more like that, and not all of East Asia, but like, South Korea is like a part of one kind of aspect of East Asia, but like it's very much like there's an image that everyone builds in that industry, or like in that company or in an agency, and like the artists are only one cog in machine, which is a very different approach to what people over here, like over in the West, are used to. Over here it's more about the artist, right, as an individual. You know, and even when like there are boy bands and things like that coming out, groups, still like each of the individual. I think maybe it's more so now. Like I'm not entirely sure. I wouldn't say like the wet like I wouldn't say that there aren't any examples of like mass produced like pop sensations over here, right? I wouldn't say we're completely devoid of those, but like I would say that over in East Asia, in South Korea in particular, like they kind of, you can tell like it's about like the company kind of comes up with a vision, and the artists themselves, their individuality is less important than the overall image or package, right? And because of that, like you have a lot of these young talent, and they come into the industry, and to be honest, a lot of them, they want to be appreciated, right? And they want to be appreciated so much that like perhaps some of them going into this system so young, they don't realize that like being appreciated is only one half the equation. Being appreciated for who you really are, that's another kettle of fish, right? And like I think that the reason why, this is only my speculation. Obviously, we don't know. Obviously, like you're entitled to your own opinion. If you know what I'm talking about, if you know which celebrity I'm talking about, then you're entitled to your own opinion. I mean no disrespect. I don't want to be contentious. I'm just stating my opinion. Is that, yeah, like I think that they lost themselves. A lot of these people, they lose themselves, and some of them come out of it, some of them don't. And the pressure of having to live up to something that isn't necessarily you, and everyone's cheering you on. Like, imagine what that would be like. That would be. I don't know if I could ever subject myself to that kind of pressure. So like, So yeah, it's a very sad story, and I hope that everyone involved, from the family of this artist and the people who are close to them, and his bandmates, like I hope that everyone kind of finds peace along the way of like the grieving and the mourning of the loss of this super talented, super like good looking like it's just like it's just such a shame when things like this happen. But anyway, so that's enough, right? I wanted to kind of maybe just delve into this example as a kind of like an introductory kind of thing to what I'm talking about. But like, it's like the more that you kind of, so like for those of you watching, right, you probably are interested in kind of building your own life in accordance with what you find valuable and beautiful, right? Like that's kind of the whole point, right, of like this awakening process, and like kind of like personal development and all of this stuff. It's like kind of like slowly coming into alignment with the side of you that kind of is like, I would very much like my own life to look or feel like this. And like along the journey, you kind of like slowly, little by little, kind of like understand where you are, understand where you need to get to, understand like what is available to you in terms of like tools and resources, how you feel about things. You come to several revelations about like, maybe this one thing that I was obsessed over is not the be all and end all of my existence, or like my eventual existence, right? And you kind of you kind of go along this journey, right? But as you go along the journey, right, you realize that like there is black and white. Even in terms of like, when you kind of approach people, or when you envision yourself approaching people, you can see that there are some people who are going to absolutely love what you have to offer, because like you love what you have to offer so much. I mean, you kind of have to, right? It sounds a bit self-centered. I'm sure we all kind of have worries about like being overly self-centered, but like, I did an entry about narcissism, me. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's quite juicy, if a little controversial, but yeah, but like you, you know, but you also see that, you also kind of feel that, there are probably some people who aren't going to get you at all, right? I mean, who's born, unless you're really lucky, right? And you're one of the you're super popular kids in school, right? Who is born and grows up like in an environment where everyone loves them? You're really, really lucky if you're one of the popular kids in school, right? In my opinion, right? I know, and I guess there are then the followers of the popular kids, and then there's me, and I'm sure like maybe you can relate to this. It's like just people think you're weird and stuff like that, and as you kind of go along your journey to kind of like owning who you really are, I'm sure you're probably like your focus is probably in training on like the fact that like a lot of people aren't going to get you, right? And not only that, right, but like that, as you go on your journey, or your path to mastery, like if that's kind of part of what your journey entails, you kind of realize that like what you thought was going to be the case as you launch yourself into this pursuit or this endeavor is not entirely what you thought it was going to be on the from the get-go, right? Because you're probably like enamored as I was, right? Like with like, oh, I'm gonna be a musician, I'm gonna be like I'm gonna be a motivational speaker and write this cool stuff, and it's gonna inspire people. Yeah, like, and as I mentioned it in my entry about like five steps that you're on the right path, right? One of them is you have to feel love, right? So love is really important, right? So like that enamored stage is super cool, right? That's definitely a sign that you're on a right path, or at least that you're on a path of the heart, right? But as you go on the journey, you realize like that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, you know, it's not all stardust and moonbeams, right? it's like all fairy dust and moonbeams. Like it's kind of like there are challenges that you didn't foresee. There's like all of this technical shit that you have to learn, you like it's one thing to be like, oh, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna be so cool, but then when you sit down at your piano or at your workstation and you're like, oh shit, I can't do this thing, and it's super annoying. Like, I don't know what note this is on the piano. I hear a note, but I don't know which note it is on the piano, and it's like, that seems like a very fundamental thing. Or like, I don't know how to make this particular sound that I hear all the time in various like like tracks and songs, and it's like, and this mountain list of stuff that you don't know how to do. And even then, and then you have to then like go through those challenges, and you have to ultimately decide whether or not you still want to keep going, right? Because sometimes I don't want to be a buzzkill, right? I definitely don't, right? Because I know how painful it is to realize that like that something was way more challenging and way more like effort investment heavy, and learning and stuff than you initially thought, and you kind of get discouraged. I know how painful that is, so I don't mean to be a buzzkill, but it could happen, and just in general, like, another point I mentioned in my 5 steps of how you're on the right path is like you have to kind of feel challenged at least a bit, right? It has to make you slightly uncomfortable, right? So no matter what we do, and like this is the magical thing about going on a journey, is like you learn to kind of roll. If you kind of don't get too attached to love, right, which is kind of what I want to talk about in this entry, right, or what I was trying to talk about over the course of these past two entries, right. It's like you learn how to roll with the punches, because like, I, speaking for myself, right, I like, when I grew up, like, I was a basket case. Like, I couldn't, I was even less punctual than I am now. Like, I was so disorganized. Like, I was just like, oh, like, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, my parents are shouting at me for being like clumsy and careless, and my teachers are like, why don't you just fucking study? Blah blah blah. And like, I wasn't a bad student by any means, but like, I was super like last minute, and like I was so like scatterbrained and like so disorganized, and like it took a while for me to learn. And the thing that helped me learn how to do all of that stuff was to be like, okay, like, I decided to do this path, and oh fuck, there's shit that I have to do in terms of organization. Oh shit, like, just because you do something that you enjoy doesn't mean you're free from like having to organize your life. And like, at that point, the beautiful thing is that like, because you now have ownership of what you're doing, like, you actually stand a chance to actually learn. If you're someone like me who's really disorganized, to actually learn how to organize yourself and the things in your life, you know. And I think that's quite cool, because those skills of organization are really useful, in life, and everything in life. But but like, as you kind of, you go through these challenges, like, assuming that, and you will, if you haven't already, you will find something, right? You have to try a bunch of stuff, right? You have to try a bunch of stuff, like, to realize that like it wasn't quite what you were after, and maybe you were compromising a little, or whatever the case may be, right? But eventually you settle on something, as long as and I'm sure you will. It's like, no one kind of goes on this path of the heart and gives up halfway. At least I don't think, unless it's for a very good reason, right? It's a very, very good reason. But most people who start upon the journey, they keep going. Even if you feel like giving up a lot of the times, right? Like I say, giving up is not actually giving up, right? You will find a way to keep going, right? Because your love for that thing is so strong, right? But yeah, like, you kind of, yeah, like, but still, you go through these challenges, and it's like, you learn how to be a badass, like, in that way. And just that there are things in your life that you have, like, it's like, you kind of have to play the bad guy, is one way of putting it. Sometimes you kind of have to be like that kind of abrasive asshole sometimes, and not necessarily just to other people, but also like to yourself, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, that doesn't mean like be hard on yourself or anything. It just means like, you just have, like, you just go through like a bad day, and you're just like, fuck it, I'm going through a bad day, and you just kind of like, and you realize that like, you're going through this bad day because you just have bad days, right? Because shit happens, like, the other day I had to like do something with my car, right? Like, and it's like, I'm really bad. Like, I don't know if I don't know that much about cars. Like, I think I know a fair deal about cars, right? Over the average person. Like, a lot of people don't know shit about cars, right? They just kind of drive them and fill them up with like fuel, but they don't know how to replace this thing from their car, or like, I don't know, they have to bring it to a dealership, and like, or not dealership, but like a garage or something that can help fix them. I do that as well, but like, anyway, it's just an example. But like, yeah, shit happens, and you're like, fuck, I have to deal with this shit that like I know nothing about, and it's detracting away from the time I can spend on my craft, and I'm just having a really shit day. And now I'm starting to doubt myself again. And like, am I really going to be okay doing this thing? Because am I going to be able to make money off of this? Like, is my future going to be secure? Like, and it's like you start going back and into that thing, but like, you eventually realize that you've seen it enough. You get to a point where you've seen enough, and you're like, it's just another bad day, right? Not too dissimilar to all of the other fucking bad days I've had in the course of my awakening process, or like my kind of journey of the heart, as you will, if you will. Not too dissimilar from those, right? And it's just all part of this thing. And then like I know that like I'm steadily making progress. Right? As you begin to make progress, you start to understand what progress looks like, and it isn't always, I leveled up today, right? And I'm gonna level up tomorrow. No, sometimes you kind of level down, even like, but it's because like you're just trying to figure something out, and eventually you'll get it, right? And that's the stage, and that's the point. That's the point that hopefully most of us get to. But what most people unfortunately do is that they can't accept that shit happens, and then they really kind of lose themselves to it, right? And they get attached to this idea of love, right? And it becomes an unhealthy obsession, right? And this is kind of, and hopefully this is kind of coming full circle to the meaning I've been building up with all of these examples and rambling, right, as I usually do, right? But like this is kind of what I really want to hit, is like, life is ups and downs. Life like rewards you, sometimes even surprises you with things that fill your heart with joy and love. But like the other half of the time, like it's throwing these challenges at you, these curveballs, right? And it's like, you're enjoying yourself, huh? You're getting comfortable, huh? Complacent, eh? Let me throw this fucking curveball at you and see how you handle this. See how you handle this shit, right? And it happens, and you kind of you get hit with it, and you get hurt by it, and you get derailed by it, but then you kind of like try and figure it out. You try and deal with it. Maybe you try and deal with it in an unhealthy way, or in a way that's ineffective, and then eventually if you keep going at it, and your kind of your intention is true, aka like you really just want to live a life of happiness, and like, and kind of like alignment with your soul, right, with your heart, then like you'll get through it, and then life rewards you when you get past those tough things, right? And that's life. Those challenges, believe it or not, right? I know me being like this sensitive light worker type, right? Like I still don't really like challenges. Like I find them very distressing, right? But like when shit goes wrong, or when like, yeah, people have enmity towards you or something, or you have enmity towards other people, and like there's this like very violent energy, like negativity takes you over, and it's like, yeah, it's not pleasant, but it is like a stepping stone that kind of, like I say, burns away all of your worries and insecurities. I don't want to say burn away, because that's quite violent. Like it's more that like it just kind of like opens you up to what you really feel and what you really want. Because we get distracted, right? Because we live in such a wonderful society that's full of distractions, right? And it's easy to kind of get distracted or swayed by something or someone. And like when you inevitably face the pain of that, being distracted or swayed, right? It kind of, the pain brings you back to what really is, right? And that's part of the journey, right? And it kind of, when you kind of see like the bigger picture, it's a very beautiful thing. Not beautiful in the sense of like lovely, but beautiful in the sense of like it all is, and it has a right to exist because it's real, right? The pain of life is real, and like as much as the love that you feel in your life, right? But we run into problems when we kind of like become desperate, and we're like we have this, we all do, and this is human nature, right? You know, what am I about to describe? Like the way I'm describing it sounds like I'm berating this side of humanity, but like, and trust me, I judge myself so much, and I judge other people so much. I'm like, why the fuck are you? Why are you so enamored with love? Don't you know that blah blah blah? And it's like, you know, yeah. It's like it's just this perpetual like kind of like judgment thing that we do with ourselves and with other people, and it's like, yeah, man, trust. That's like a fucking rabbit hole and a half, isn't it? It's like fucking like why you no, but why am I judging you? Fuck me, you know. That's humanity, right? It's one of those things. You either laugh or you cry, right? You know, but but yeah, I'm not trying to berate that side of humanity, or you know, or I know that it happens, right? What can you do? But like, but it can kind of push us to the point where like we're like, you know, like I just like why can't I like I just want to feel love, and I want to feel better, and I want to feel worthy, and like the way that we pursue this ideal can become like this thing that kind of it becomes really unstable, you know, because like we seek it in kind of like we seek it in escapism, and we seek it in like external validation, and those things are absolutely not wrong, right? As long as they're healthy, right? You know, like today this leads into something else I'm going to talk about like in a couple of weeks time. Like, well, I'm going to record it, but like it's going to be released like 2 weeks time. But like today I bought like I bought some junk food. I've been guilty as charged. Like I've been eating a bit of junk recently. It's the winter season, and like I just feel like eating, and like eating makes me happy, right? You know. But I really fought with myself. Like I was like, am I gonna buy this bag of like biscuits and shit? I'm putting on a few pounds, and I'm getting a bit of a pot belly. Maybe I shouldn't. Like I've been eating a lot recently, but I decided to kind of go with my feelings, and I just bought it. And I think as long as you then kind of feel it out. This sounds like me massively justifying my actions, but like as long as you kind of feel it out, and you kind of just like, you're like, okay, well, this means I'm going to have more energy, maybe I can jog more, or like I can do more stuff. And as long as it puts you into flow, because that's what escapism and like validation does, is it makes you feel good, so that you can put yourself into a flow state, right? As long as that's what you're kind of aiming for, or as long as that's the outcome of it, then you're good. That's all right, that's balance, right? But like, when it starts to become something that is filling in a void, then that's when you have problems, right? And that's kind of, dare I say, what, in my humble opinion, happened with this celebrity I mentioned earlier. Is like potentially like it's just like it became a thing where like he was putting so much of himself into this thing because he believed that like putting himself fully into this thing would kind of absolve him from like the kind of shame that he was feeling about himself, and like not feeling important. But then when that kind of approbation and that kind of attention comes, it's like there's nothing to ground it, right? And you know, because like it's this image that has been constructed by his agency, right? And it's like that's such a painful thing, like when it comes and it does nothing for you, and it's still attention, and everyone's like, oh my god, I love you, you're so handsome, you're so talented, and he's like, and it's like everyone's loving this statue of him, and there's the real him, in the shadows, and it's warts, and it's fucking like worthlessness and pain and angst and rage, and no one sees that side. Even he doesn't want to see that side, but it still exists, and that's what causes these fucking spirals that lead to oblivion, and it's like, I'm not trying in this entry to be like, to kind of like psych you out, or to get you super worried, like if you're attached to love, then you're gonna fucking commit suicide. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, or rather, I'm giving a reference point. Again, disclaimer, a lot of what I talk about in these entries is just an idiot talking to himself, really. And I know that might sound annoying, the more that I say it, but it really is the case. I say it, I guess, as a defense mechanism, right, to kind of protect myself against the opinions of others. Like I say, right, that's part of it, but at the same time, I don't profess to really living these things, because I sure as hell do these things. More, it's just I just think about them and I just share them, because why not? Otherwise, I'm just bustling it up inside me, and it's not, and my thoughts aren't being expressed to the world. As how important am I? How self-important am I? Right? Well, yeah. But yeah, I'm just an idiot, just running my mouth. But they are my thoughts and my beliefs. So I'm not going to say I don't really believe in them. I do believe in what I say to an extent, but whether or not anyone who's watching this should take them to heart, that's up to you, as a responsible human being, right? But anyway, yeah, and it's just I've learnt in my life to be wary about times when I kind of almost want to chase love. Because every time I feel like I'm chasing love, or that I'm putting on a facade of love, usually I do an internal scan, and yep, there's some darkness in me that I'm trying to run away from now, And the more that I do it, the more that it becomes apparent to me. At this point in my life, it's really obvious to me when I'm trying to run away from something, or when other people are trying to run away from something. And again, I don't profess to be a people expert. Far from it. I have social anxiety. I'm mostly secluded right at this stage of my life, but but I can feel it. I can feel my own suppression. My own kind of trying to escape my own negative feelings and stuff like that. But yeah, just in your own life, sometimes you kind of feel you're trying to be in love, right? Because that's what we're on this journey to feel, is love and joy, right? To feel inspired, right? And that kind of connection with life. We're all after that, right? But we just have to be mindful. And it will come. It's to my mind, it's not necessarily something that you have to be really conscious about. But sometimes it does come in the form of a kick in the bum, right? A kick in the butt, to kind of knock you out of it, right? A teal swan is a good person for this. She's really good for this kind of thing. She really just fucking kicks your ass, and kind of gets you back to the shit that you've been trying to ignore, right? And it's it's painful and irritating at first, but you kind of get to that point where you're oh shit, I guess I really wanted to just really wanted to stay on track, but I guess I was just, all this stuff kind of accumulated, and I guess I was just ignoring it, right? And you look at it and you see, and you try not to get attached to that, right? Because as I'm sure you get attached as much as you do to love, you know, as you do to hatred. Like there are people who attach to love, and there are people who attach to pain, right? You know, and then there are the brave souls like you and I who like kind of like are like, well, let me just try and be present with how I feel, and you realize it's like it's like this continual breath, you know, this continual kind of love and ecstasy, and then like fucking darkness and negativity, and then you go back, and it's like, as long as you kind of are present with that, then generally speaking, like you will know peace and you will know livelihood, and that's really the best that any of us can strive for, to be honest. You know, at least speaking for myself, you know, it's like, yeah, I have ambitions, I have like aspirations, and I have desires, right? Boy, do I have a lot of desire, you know, that like, yeah, I need to kind of act upon. But like, I think I'm going to talk about that in the next entry, but like, long ass entry as usual. But I think I'm going to wrap this up soon. But yeah, you know, the more that you center yourself around what is real and what it means to be alive, the more you realize it's like, you know, yes, life is about love. It is about love. You are 100% right. You know, you are 100% right that you're following love, my friend. You know, because what else are you going to do, right? Are you going to be miserable like most other people because, like, they just haven't given themselves permission to follow what they love, right? And it's a sad state of affairs, but, like, you know, yeah, like, we should follow our joy because it's natural, you know? You know, I don't know, right? You know, like, so why wouldn't you want to be happy, right? So, like, yeah, like, I don't always feel this way, but like I 100% kind of like stand by, like, you know, like my desire to live happily and to live as joyfully and as consciously as possible. That's right. I'm 100% conscious all the time, and I'm never unconscious. Yeah, I'm hella unconscious not most of the time, but like, yeah, you know, I fall into unconscious patterns all the time, you know, stuff from childhood, stuff that I developed that's new, that's unconscious, you know, the next big thing, the next cool gadgets or like trend or like whatever, you know, I fall prey to that all the time. Maybe not all the time, but, you know, a lot of the time, right? But, or rather, I can. The potential is always there. You know, I know this for myself. That I can, and consciousness is always around the corner, if I'm not careful. You know, but yeah, you know, yeah, that's fine. You know, like wanting to feel more love and to feel more joy and to be more inspired. That's fine. You know, I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, right? You know, I'm preaching to the fucking choir. You know, but also, like, when we connect with life, we realize that it is, you know, the challenges that come to you, they are an opportunity if you so kind of let them be, to an opportunity to kind of like course correct, like to be more present with how you feel, like, and to kind of connect with life more fully, you know, because life is love and fear, it's joy and pain, pleasure and pain rather, right? And, you know, and there's just some, yeah, you know, it's sometimes like we kind of get tempted to, you know, it's just like we want to maintain healthy relations with other people. We want to give like we don't want to worry other people. We want to keep things like stable. We ourselves just want to keep things steady so that we don't lose our way. It's like, yeah, you know, but sometimes, like, you know, it's just, again, I am not going to be paranoid over this, and I hope that that's not how I'm making you feel, right? It's not something to be paranoid over, or at least that's not my intention. Rather, it's like, if only if there is a problem. Like, if there's not a problem, don't worry. Seriously, don't worry. Hakuna Matata, baby, right? Don't worry, be happy. Right, that's a Bob. Sorry, I'm confusing two things. One's the Lion King, one's Bob Marley, right? I think it's Bob Marley, right? Yeah, it's Bob Marley. But you know, when there's not a problem, don't worry. That if there's not a problem and you're feeling amazing, then that is fucking A. That is wonderful, right? That is absolutely splendid, right? If you're feeling great, right? But only if there is a problem and you don't know. Only if there is a problem does this become like a potential troubleshooting kind of avenue, right? It's not something to be overly vigilant about. No, absolutely not. Like, it's not something that you're like, oh shit, Bo Jinjin said that like too much love is a bad thing. And again, like sometimes I make these titles and I try to make them a bit clickbaity because, like, I want people to watch my video. I'm sorry, I'm guilty as charged, but like, I try not to do, I try not to make it too like base, if you will, but like, I am a bit guilty of making titles a bit more like clickable, right? It's just I'm a YouTuber. What do you want me to do? But but yeah, only don't be like, oh, like I need to watch out for every single time I want to do something or I want to eat something or I want to feel good, like, because there's always the possibility that I'm running away. It's like, no. The way you tell is by how you feel, right? Any tool is only as effective as like how aligned it is to your own experience, your own soul, I guess, right? How you feel. So if you feel great, you don't need anything. Seriously, you don't need to be vigilant. Your soul you are in line with your soul, right? But when you have a problem and you don't know what's wrong, then maybe this is the problem, right? And it's a potential thing that you can have. It's like a perspective. All it really is a perspective, right? All I really give in these entries are perspective. Like, they're never like a kind of like a concrete, like, do this, right? It's always a perspective. If it helps you, great, right? But like the way that you can tell whether or not it's going to help you, as with anything, and I'm sure you know this already, is like, as a sensitive being, right, is that you just scan how you feel. And if you feel great, then there's no need to fix anything. But when you feel bad, then you can use a perspective such as this to be like, okay, like, what am I doing that's not so great? Oh, no. What am I doing that's fucking not so great? No, how am I fucking up? No, just like, what, like, maybe how am I seeing things potentially, and how can I kind of just change the way that I see things, right? And sometimes it's just being like, I'm fucking miserable. And like this person, like maybe you're watching this video, you're like, fuck this guy, right? Seriously, do it, right? It's like, sometimes I watch people and I get pissed off by them, right? Like, again, like I mentioned Teal earlier, like, sometimes, like, I think, like, maybe, I think that's what she would want, is to kind of knock people out, like, off balance, so that, like, they can come back to themselves, right? And so, like, that kind of anger or frustration or that negativity or that, like, kind of critical, like, just like, fuck, like, who, like, that judgmental side of you, own that. If anything, own it, right? And then just go into it and be as dark as you want, right? Because that's what I do. Anyway, yeah, this is pretty much this entry done. But like, I hope, I might come back to this, but honestly, I probably won't. I think I've wrapped this sort of thing up, more or less. Maybe not like perfectly, but like, I think I talked about it adequately. But anyway, so cool. I hope that was insightful. I hope I didn't piss you off too much. But if I did, great. And by great, I mean fucking fuck, right? But like, yeah. So cool, as always. Thank you for watching this. If you have any comments or anything, feel free to leave them in the description below. And yeah, I hope I added something to your life. And if I didn't, fuck. So cool. Until next time, guys, thank you very much for watching this, and I will catch you in the next exciting episode. Who am I kidding? These are never the next psychedelic episode of Bo Jin Jin Vlog. And next time I will look equally as weird with my pink light thing, and the fact that it's the afternoon and the British weather is whatever. Stupid. British weather is the worst. So go. Until next time, guys. Keep going. I love you. And yeah, talk to you next time, guys. Peace out. Bye. Whoosh.